The chamber of the syndicate warlords was a cold, shadowy place where ambition and cruelty ruled. General Veilrex stood at the center, his scaled form shimmering under the flickering holographic lights. His clawed hand traced the scar running down his snout, a memento from a failed skirmish years ago. The room was silent as he turned to face the assembly of syndicate leaders, his voice a low, resonant growl. Humans! He spat the word like a curse. The weakest species in the galaxy. Cowards who hide behind words and treaties, avoiding conflict at every turn. They will crumble the moment we apply pressure. It's time to remind them of their place. The hologram of a captured human diplomat flickered beside him. Pale, trembling, and bound, the figure pleaded for mercy. Veilrex ignored the pleas and grinned, showing rows of jagged teeth. We will show the coalition that these Earthlings are unworthy of standing among us. And when they fall, the rest will follow. On a quiet human colony orbiting a distant star, Marcus Kane sat in a dimly lit cantina nursing a glass of something strong and amber. His world was silence and routine, a deliberate choice. The former Marine had earned his peace after years of bloody warfare and unspeakable missions. The galaxy had moved on without him, and that suited him fine. The door hissed open, cutting through the murmur of patrons. Marcus didn't look up until a shadow fell over his table. A coalition envoy stood there, a wiry alien with pale, translucent skin and eyes like black marbles. Marcus Kane? The envoy said in clipped tones. Marcus took a slow sip from his glass before answering. Depends on who's asking. The envoy set a hollow projector on the table, and a recording of the Syndicate's war chamber flickered to life. Marcus watched in silence as Veilrex declared his disdain for humanity and outlined his plan to execute the kidnapped diplomats. When the recording ended, the envoy leaned in. You've seen this. You know what it means. Marcus set his glass down with deliberate care. What it means, he said, is that you're looking for someone to clean up a mess. And you came to me because no one else was crazy enough to take the job. The envoy's expression didn't change. You're uniquely qualified. We need someone who can act decisively, who can make an impression. If the syndicate succeeds, it won't just be the diplomats who pay the price. Humanity's place in the coalition will be permanently tarnished. You've seen how fragile our standing is. Marcus leaned back, his eyes narrowing. I'm done fighting other people's wars. Find someone else. As he turned away, the cantina's lights flickered, and a low rumble shook the floor. An explosion ripped through the outer wall, sending patrons scattering. Syndicate soldiers stormed in, weapons drawn, their reptilian forms gleaming under the emergency lights. Marcus moved instinctively. He flipped the table for cover and drew the compact sidearm he always carried, a relic from his military days. A flurry of precise shots dropped the first wave of attackers. The envoy cowered behind the bar, shouting, "They've tracked me! They're after the intel!" Marcus cursed under his breath. The syndicate didn't leave loose ends, and anyone connected to the mission was now a target. Diving and rolling through the chaos, Marcus neutralized the remaining soldiers with brutal efficiency. One attacker lunged at him, a blade glinting in the dim light. Marcus sidestepped and countered, using the alien's own momentum to slam it into a support column. When the dust settled, the cantina was in ruins. The remaining patrons stared at Marcus in a mix of fear and awe. He holstered his weapon and turned to the envoy, who was trembling but unharmed. "Looks like you've got yourself a problem," Marcus said grimly. "And now it's mine, too." The next morning, Marcus stood on the deck of a coalition transport ship, watching the stars streak past. The envoy briefed him on the mission details. The diplomats were being held on Syraxis Prime, deep in syndicate-controlled territory. The stronghold was a fortress, and time was running out. Marcus absorbed the information without a word, his mind already working through the logistics. He didn't trust the coalition, and he trusted the syndicate even less. But there was no turning back now. "Why do you do it?" the envoy asked suddenly. "Why take the risk?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. He stared out at the endless void of space, his face unreadable. "Because someone has to," he said finally. As the ship approached Syraxis Prime, a transmission crackled over the comms. It was a recording from General Veilrex, his voice dripping with disdain. To the humans who dare challenge me, you will fail. Your diplomats will serve as an example to the galaxy. And you, whoever you are, will die forgotten. Marcus leaned back in his seat, a faint smile playing on his lips. Let him talk, he muttered. He won't see it coming. The envoy glanced at him nervously. You're confident. Marcus shrugged. Confidence has nothing to do with it. I've been underestimated before. Never ends well for the other guy. The ship shuddered as it entered Syraxis Prime's atmosphere, the reddish glow of the planet's surface spreading out below them. Marcus checked his gear one last time, every motion precise and deliberate. He didn't need fanfare or speeches. He needed results. As the transport touched down, Marcus stepped onto the ramp, his silhouette stark against the rising dust. The mission ahead was impossible, the odds stacked against him. But that was where he thrived. Let's get this over with, he said, his voice steady. Time to remind the galaxy what humans are made of. The Syndicate outpost loomed against the jagged Syraxian mountains, its spire-like towers piercing the sulphurous clouds. Marcus Kane crouched on a ridge, surveying the target through the scope of his rifle. His coalition team lay spread out behind him, their alien forms blending awkwardly with the rocky terrain. A towering Zelnari named Drax whispered, his voice a guttural rumble. This plan of yours, it's reckless. The Syndicate will see us coming. Marcus didn't look away from the scope. That's the point. If they think we're stupid enough to attack head-on, they won't expect the real strike. A flicker of unease passed through the team. Most had been skeptical of the human from the start, viewing his confidence as arrogance. But Marcus's reputation carried weight, and they followed because they had no better options. The team's tech specialist, a wiry alien with bioluminescent skin named Raxil, tapped at his console. Perimeter sensors are active. We'll need to disrupt them or we won't make it 10 feet. Marcus turned, his expression calm but commanding. You handle the sensors, Drax, and I will draw their attention. When the alarms go off, that's your window to slip inside. Get what we came for and get out. Stick to the plan, and we'll all walk away. Raxil snorted, a sound like bubbling water. Bold of you to assume the Syndicate will let us walk away. Marcus smirked. They'll be too busy chasing ghosts. The plan unfolded like clockwork. Marcus and Drax approached the outpost under the cover of a thick sulphurous fog. Syndicate guards patrolled the perimeter, their reptilian forms clad in dark armor. Marcus motioned for Drax to wait, then crept forward, his movements silent as a shadow. He reached the edge of the compound and planted a small explosive charge on a fuel depot. As he retreated, he triggered the detonator, and the resulting explosion lit up the sky. Alarms blared, and Syndicate soldiers swarmed the area, their guttural shouts echoing in the chaos. Time to move, Marcus muttered into his calm. Raxil and the rest of the team slipped past the panicked guards, their movements precise and coordinated. Inside the compound, they navigated the labyrinthine halls, guided by Raxil's scanner. Meanwhile, Marcus and Drax provided a relentless distraction. Marcus used his rifle to pick off guards from a distance, his shots precise and lethal. Drax, wielding a massive energy axe, charged into groups of soldiers with a ferocity that matched his imposing size. You're enjoying this, Marcus remarked as Drax dispatched another Syndicate soldier with a single swing. The Zelnari grinned, baring rows of sharp teeth. I live for battle. But I admit your tactics are effective. Marcus gave a small nod. Glad you're catching on. Inside the compound, Raxil and the others reached the control room. The holographic displays showed detailed schematics of the Syndicate stronghold where the diplomats were held. Raxil quickly downloaded the data, his fingers dancing over the console. Got it. Let's get out of here before. The doors slammed open, and Syndicate guards poured in, weapons blazing. The team scattered, returning fire as the room erupted in chaos. A lithe Vexery named Eileen vaulted over a console, her twin plasma blades cutting through the enemy like a dancer on a deadly stage. We're pinned! Raxel shouted. Outside, Marcus heard the commotion over the comms. Hold your position, he ordered. We're coming to you. He and Drax fought their way through the compound, leaving a trail of fallen Syndicate soldiers in their wake. The corridors were narrow, forcing close-quarters combat. Marcus moved with precision, every shot calculated, every movement deliberate. They reached the control room just as Raxel and the others were being overwhelmed. Marcus tossed a smoke grenade into the fray, then charged in, his rifle blazing. The smoke disoriented the Syndicate soldiers, giving Marcus and his team the upper hand. Within moments, the room was secure. Everyone intact? Marcus asked, scanning the team. Raxel held up the data drive, grinning. Mission accomplished. Barely. Marcus nodded. Good. Now let's get out before reinforcements show up. The escape was anything but smooth. Syndicate forces pursued them relentlessly, their numbers seemingly endless. Marcus led the team through a maze of tunnels, using his knowledge of guerrilla warfare to stay one step ahead. At one point, they found themselves cornered in a narrow passage, the only exit blocked by Syndicate soldiers. We're trapped, Eileen hissed. Marcus glanced at the walls, his mind racing. He spotted a weak point in the structure and quickly planted an explosive charge. Get back, he ordered. The explosion collapsed the tunnel, sealing off the Syndicate pursuit. Marcus turned to the team, his expression hard. That buys us time. Move! They emerged from the tunnels onto a barren plateau, the Syndicate compound a distant silhouette behind them. The team collapsed in exhaustion, but Marcus remained standing, his eyes scanning the horizon. Raxel approached him, his usual sarcasm replaced with genuine curiosity. How do you do it? Stay so calm when everything's falling apart? Marcus shrugged. Panic doesn't solve problems. Focus does. Drax chuckled, his deep voice rumbling. You're an odd one, human. But I'll admit, you've earned my respect. Marcus allowed himself a faint smile. High praise from a Zelnari. I'll take it. As the team regrouped, Raxel reviewed the data drive. His expression darkened as he scanned the contents. They're moving the diplomats, he said. A Syndicate stronghold deep in the Syraxian mountains. It's even more fortified than this place. Marcus sighed, his mind already piecing together the next plan. Then we'll hit them harder. This isn't over. As the transport ship lifted off, Marcus stared out the window at the receding landscape. The Syndicate had underestimated him, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. Raxel approached, his voice quieter than usual. You're not what I expected, Kane. Marcus didn't look away from the window. What did you expect? Arrogance. Recklessness. But you're something else. Something the Syndicate doesn't understand. Marcus finally turned, his expression unreadable. They'll understand soon enough. The ship disappeared into the stars, leaving the smoldering ruins of the Syndicate outpost behind. The mission had just begun, and Marcus Kane was ready for whatever came next. The cold winds of the Syraxian mountains howled through the jagged peaks, carrying with them a biting chill and the acrid scent of sulfur. The Syndicate stronghold stood carved into the largest mountain, its spires rising like jagged teeth against the crimson sky. Marcus Kane lay prone on a ridge, studying the compound through the scope of his sniper rifle. Raxel crouched beside him, his translucent skin glowing faintly in the dim light. This place is a fortress. Energy shields, automated turrets, patrol drones, they've got everything. Marcus adjusted the focus on his scope. Fortresses fall. You just have to know where to hit. Raxel glanced at the rest of the team, huddled a short distance away. You really think this is going to work? Marcus lowered the rifle and met Raxel's gaze. It has to. Those diplomats are the only leverage the Syndicate has. If we don't get them out, humanity's standing in the coalition is finished. Raxel hesitated, then nodded. What's the plan? Marcus gathered the team around a holographic map of the stronghold, projected from Raxel's device. The Syndicate isn't expecting an attack this deep in their territory, Marcus began. They'll focus on defending the obvious entry points. We'll exploit that. He pointed to a ventilation shaft near the western wall. This leads directly into the lower levels. It's small, but it's our best way in. Once inside, Raxel will disable the security systems. That's when Drax and Eileen hit the holding cells and extract the diplomats. Drax grunted. And the Syndicate? They won't just let us walk out. Marcus nodded. That's where I come in. I'll create a distraction, keep their forces occupied while you get the diplomats to the transport. Eileen frowned. You're putting yourself in the middle of their entire garrison. That's suicide. Marcus smirked. They call me the Boogeyman for a reason. The team exchanged uneasy glances, but no one argued. Night fell, cloaking the mountains in darkness. The team moved silently through the snow, their forms blending with the shadows. Marcus reached the ventilation shaft first, prying open the grate with practiced ease. One by one, they slipped inside, navigating the narrow passageways. The air was stale, heavy with the hum of machinery. Raxel led the way, his scanner lighting the path. Security hub is 2 levels down, he whispered. The team reached the hub without incident. Raxel set to work, his fingers moving deftly over the console. Give me 2 minutes, he muttered. Marcus checked his watch. You've got 90 seconds. Raxel didn't respond, his focus unshaken. As the seconds ticked by, tension filled the air. Finally, the hum of the security systems faded. Raxel grinned. Done. Turrets offline, cameras looped. We're invisible. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. Good work. Now get moving. The stronghold came alive with chaos as Marcus began his distraction. He moved through the upper levels like a shadow, planting explosive charges and taking out guards with brutal efficiency. The first explosion rocked the compound, setting off alarms. Syndicate soldiers poured into the corridors, their guttural shouts echoing through the halls. Marcus engaged them with precision, every shot landing true. He kept moving, never staying in one place long enough to be cornered. A patrol drone spotted him, its red eye glowing menacingly. Marcus ducked into a side corridor, firing a grappling hook to reach a higher platform. From his vantage point, he took out the drone with a single shot. Come on, he muttered to himself. Chase the ghost. Meanwhile, Drax and Eileen reached the holding cells. The diplomats were huddled in a corner, their faces pale and gaunt. Drax smashed the lock with a single swing of his energy axe, and the door flew open. Coalition rescue, he announced gruffly. We're getting you out. One of the diplomats, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes, stepped forward. You're Marcus Kane's team, aren't you? Eileen nodded. We don't have time for introductions. Follow us. The diplomats moved quickly, their fear overridden by hope. As the team made their way to the extraction point, Marcus's voice crackled over the comms. You've got company heading your way. Heavy reinforcements. Eileen cursed. Can you slow them down? Already on it, Marcus replied. He set another explosive charge, this one on a fuel line running through the main corridor. As the Syndicate soldiers approached, he detonated it, the resulting fireball engulfing the passage. Marcus used the chaos to slip away, heading for the rendezvous point. At the extraction zone, the transport ship waited, its engines humming softly. The team arrived with the diplomats in tow, but their relief was short-lived. Syndicate forces closed in from all sides, cutting off their escape. Drax growled. We're surrounded. Marcus's voice came over the comms. Not for long. From the ridge above, Marcus unleashed a torrent of covering fire, picking off the Syndicate soldiers with deadly accuracy. The team seized the opening, rushing the diplomats onto the transport. Marcus joined them moments later, his rifle smoking. Everyone accounted for? Raxel nodded. All clear. Let's go. The transport lifted off, its engines roaring as it climbed into the night sky. Syndicate forces fired after it, but the ship was already out of range. As the team settled into their seats, exhaustion washed over them. The diplomats murmured their gratitude, but Marcus remained silent, staring out the window at the receding stronghold. Raxel approached him, his expression thoughtful. You did it. Against all odds, you pulled it off. Marcus didn't look away from the window. This was just a skirmish. The syndicate won't stop here. Drax grunted. Let them come. They know what they're up against now. Marcus finally turned, his eyes hard. Do they? Because I don't think they've seen anything yet. The transport disappeared into the stars, leaving the syndicate stronghold in ruins and humanity's reputation in the galaxy forever changed.